Jimmy Haslam just looked the entire city of Cleveland dead in the eyes and said something that nobody, absolutely nobody, saw coming. The same man who stood before reporters less than a year ago and called the Deshaun Watson acquisition a big swing and a miss is now telling the world that Watson has a great chance to be the starting quarterback in 2026, while a 22-year-old rookie who carried this team on his back for 7 games at the end of last season sits in the building wondering if any of it even mattered. The QB1 battle in Cleveland is not just a football story. It is a story about $230 million in guaranteed money, about a franchise's desperate need to be right just once, about a young man with everything to prove fighting a ghost of a quarterback whose best days may be buried somewhere in Houston, and about an owner who cannot stop himself from making the same kinds of decisions that have defined a decade of losing on the shores of Lake Erie. This is one of the most combustible, most fascinating, most consequential quarterback situations in the entire NFL, and it is happening right now in real time before a single practice rep has been taken. To understand the full weight of what is unfolding in Berea, Ohio, you have to go all the way back to the beginning of one of the most controversial quarterback acquisitions in professional football history. In March of 2022, the Cleveland Browns did something that stunned the league. They surrendered 3 first-round draft picks to acquire Deshaun Watson from the Houston Texans, and then, in a move that left front offices across the NFL shaking their heads, signed him to a 5-year, fully guaranteed $230 million contract, the largest fully guaranteed contract in NFL history at that time, for a quarterback who had not played a single regular season game in over a year, for a quarterback facing 22 civil lawsuits alleging sexual misconduct, for a quarterback who had made clear his desire to leave Houston but had given the Browns no specific reason to believe he wanted to come to Cleveland in particular. Since being traded to the Browns, Watson has played in only 19 games across 4 seasons due to a combination of suspensions and injuries. During his time with Cleveland, Watson has completed 61.2% of passes for 3,365 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, posting an 80.7 passer rating, a steep drop from the 104.5 rating he averaged during his best years in Houston. 19 games in 4 seasons on a $230 million guaranteed contract. The numbers alone are an indictment of the entire enterprise. But the injuries tell an even darker story. Watson missed 11 games in 2022 due to his suspension. He played in 2023 and 2024 with diminishing effectiveness before the ultimate catastrophe. In October 2024, he suffered a torn Achilles tendon. And then, as he was attempting to return from that devastating injury, he suffered the re-rupture of the same Achilles in January 2025, ending his entire 2025 season before it ever started.
2 torn Achilles tendons on the same leg at 30 years old. For a quarterback whose entire value proposition was always tied to his athleticism, his scrambling ability, his capacity to extend plays and create with his legs, the physical damage alone would be enough to end most careers. And so, for the entirety of the 2025 NFL season, the Cleveland Browns had to find another way. Actually, 2 other ways, because the first solution broke down just as dramatically as Watson himself had. Enter the 2 rookies. Dillon Gabriel, the 3rd-round pick from Oregon, got the first crack. He started 6 consecutive games, showed flashes, and then suffered a concussion in Week 11 that ended his run. And that is when the world got its first real look at Shedeur Sanders, son of NFL legend Deion Sanders, the quarterback who had been the most talked about prospect in the 2025 draft class and who fell all the way to the 5th round, the 144th overall pick, amid a draft process that was as controversial and bizarre as any in recent memory. Shedeur Sanders was thrust into the starting quarterback job for the Cleveland Browns for the final 7 games of the 2025 NFL season, going 3-4 following an injury to Gabriel. He logged 1,400 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions, completing 56.6% of his passes, affirming that the raw talent was evident, but so were the growing pains. A 3-4 record on a team that was 1-8 when he took over. 3 wins for a 5th-round rookie, playing for a franchise in complete organizational chaos, with no offensive line to speak of, no established head coach, Kevin Stefanski had already been fired, and no real infrastructure around him. By any rational measure, Shedeur Sanders did enough, more than enough. He came in, he competed, he showed poise, and he gave Cleveland fans something they had not felt in a very long time: genuine, unscripted hope at the quarterback position. And then January came. And then the coaching carousel spun. And then Todd Monken was hired as the new head coach. And then the NFL scouting combine arrived, and the entire narrative started shifting in a direction that caught almost everyone off guard.
At the NFL Combine in Indianapolis, General Manager Andrew Berry did not give a timetable for a decision at starting quarterback, but confirmed that both Sanders and Watson would be among those competing. "We don't have to make that decision anytime soon," Berry said. "I think any player that we have in that room we would expect to compete to earn a role. Those two would be no different." ESPN. Fine, reasonable, an open competition. Nothing too alarming yet. But then Berry added something that revealed the full complexity of the Browns' financial reality. Cleveland owes Watson $46 million in salary next season, with an $80.7 million cap hit in 2026, the largest in the entire NFL. ESPN. $80.7 million in cap space dedicated to a quarterback who has not played meaningful football since October of 2024. That is not just a financial commitment, that is a financial hostage situation. The Cleveland Browns cannot simply move on from Deshaun Watson the way a normal team might move on from a failed veteran. They are paying him whether he plays or not. And that reality, that inescapable, suffocating financial reality, is the hidden hand that is shaping every single public statement, every press conference answer, every carefully worded non-commitment about who the starting quarterback will be. Head coach Todd Monken, for his part, was careful at his introductory news conference. "Sure, I think it's open competition," Monken said. "I don't know why it wouldn't be. I don't mean that harshly, but I don't think there's enough on film over the last couple years, one way or the other, to say we have our starter at quarterback yet, whether internally or externally." Sportskeeda. Not enough on film. An interesting framing when you consider that Sanders started 7 games and Watson hasn't played at all since 2024. The coach who hasn't coached either quarterback in a real game yet is telling reporters he hasn't seen enough to decide. It is the kind of statement that keeps everyone honest and keeps every option open, including the option that most of the outside world did not see coming. And then Jimmy Haslam opened his mouth at the NFL owners' meetings in Arizona, and everything changed. Speaking to reporters, Haslam said about Watson, "Deshaun has a great chance. Fresh start, offensive-minded coach who has in his past been able to work with all kinds of different quarterbacks and make them successful. So Deshaun has a great chance to do that now. We talked to him the other day. He said he weighs the least he has in several years. He's in great shape." Bleacher Report.
The same Jimmy Haslam who publicly called the Watson acquisition a big swing and a miss just 1 year ago is now praising the quarterback's weight, his shape, his enthusiasm, and his potential with a new coaching staff. The reversal was so complete, so emphatic, and so unexpected that it sent shockwaves through every corner of the NFL media ecosystem. Adam Schefter said, "I can't believe that Jimmy Haslam said that Deshaun Watson has a great chance to start." Browns Nation. When Adam Schefter, one of the most measured and experienced reporters in the entire league, is expressing disbelief at a news development, you know something genuinely remarkable has just occurred. Browns reporter Mary Kay Cabot of the Cleveland Plain Dealer shared her reaction. Jimmy was so effusive in his praise of Deshaun, so excited about him, so positive about him, that it really leads me to believe that they are thinking seriously of him being their starting quarterback in 2026. And Deshaun Watson, if the season started tomorrow, I actually think he probably would be the starter. Yardbarker. If the season started tomorrow. Think about the implications of that sentence. A man who has not played a game since October 2024. A man who suffered 2 separate Achilles tears in the span of a few months. A man whose on-field performance in Cleveland was, by nearly every metric, a significant disappointment, even when he was healthy. This man, according to one of the most respected beat reporters covering the franchise, would be the starter if the season began today. NFL Network insider Mike Garafolo went even further. Does Deshaun Watson have a chance to be the Browns starter in 2026? Yes, he does, Garafolo said on Good Morning Football. And in my opinion, he's got a great shot. In fact, at this point, if Deshaun Watson is the starter Week 1 for the Cleveland Browns, this guy right here is not going to be surprised. Heavy sports. Watson, in pole position, before a single OTA rep, before a single training camp snap, before anyone has seen him throw to a live receiver at game speed after 2 Achilles surgeries. The logic being offered by those supporting this position goes something like this. Watson is in the final year of his contract. The Browns owe him the money regardless. His physical tools are still elite. Todd Monken is an offensive genius who has maximized quarterbacks with far less natural talent, and the organization simply cannot afford the narrative of Watson leaving and succeeding somewhere else after everything they invested. NFL insider Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated noted that the team can't afford to push Watson off and have him succeed after he leaves, given the trade the Browns made for him in 2022. Heavy sports. That is the ghost that haunts every conversation about Watson's future. 3 first-round picks, $230 million fully guaranteed. If Deshaun Watson lands somewhere else in 2027 and plays well, even for one good season, it will become one of the defining failures in franchise history. And so, even on the eve of what appeared to be a clear passing of the torch to Shedeur Sanders, the Browns are pulling the torch back, just in case. But here is the other side of this story. Because Shedeur Sanders is not sitting quietly in a corner waiting for the organization to make up its mind. The Cleveland Browns confirmed that Sanders will switch to his original jersey number, number 2, for the 2026 season. Yahoo Sports. It is a symbolic move, a statement of identity and intention. Sanders wore that number at Trinity Christian High School, at Jackson State under his father's coaching, and at Colorado during the most celebrated college football career of his generation. He recorded 7,364 yards and 64 touchdowns in his 2-year college career, finishing 3rd in the nation in passing yards and 2nd in touchdown passes. Yahoo Sports. He is reclaiming his number. He is reclaiming his identity. He is sending a message to his organization, to his teammates, and to the entire NFL that he is not here to be a footnote in someone else's story. Haslam confirmed Sanders' off-season dedication, saying, "I think Shedeur got an education in that, and my instincts are he'll come back ready to play." Pro Football Network. Ready to play. Haslam believes in both of them. He is publicly praising both of them. He has financial reasons to start Watson and competitive reasons to start Sanders, and absolutely no obligation to resolve the contradiction anytime soon. Watson has already taken action to get ahead of the competition. Before the off-season program officially began, Watson traveled to Florida and threw passes to wide receiver Jerry Jeudy in a private workout session, building the kind of chemistry and rhythm that takes time to develop. Clutch points.
Watson connecting with Judy before Sanders has even had an official OTA rep under the new coaching staff. That is not a coincidence. That is a veteran quarterback understanding exactly what he needs to do to win a job he cannot afford to lose, and doing it.
Head coach Todd Monken added another layer of complexity by confirming that QB reps will not be divided evenly. The Browns will pick a starter at the beginning of the offseason program, and the backup will have to fight to win the job from there. A starter from day one, not a co-equal competition, not a 50-50 split. One quarterback gets the ones, and the other quarterback gets to fight uphill every single day, trying to take the job away. And based on everything that has been said publicly, from Haslam's effusive praise to Garafolo's pole position report to The Athletic's Jason Lloyd writing that it seems the Browns want Watson to win, the starter handed those first-team reps at the beginning of the program is almost certainly going to be Deshaun Watson. Which means Shedeur Sanders, the young quarterback who was supposed to be the future, who went 3-4 as a fifth-round rookie starter, who has been working out all winter in Cleveland staying ready, is going to have to take the hardest possible path. He is going to have to be so undeniably good that the coaching staff has no choice but to give him the job. Browns analyst Ken Carman put it bluntly, Shedeur has to go out there and just be abominable to me in OTAs for Deshaun Watson to win this job. And from the other direction, analysts across Cleveland media are raising eyebrows at a scenario where a quarterback who hasn't played in well over a year is handed the starting designation before practice has even begun. This is the brutal reality of the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation in 2026. Two quarterbacks, two completely different stories. One is 30 years old, carrying the weight of $230 million in guarantees, 2 torn Achilles tendons, 4 lost seasons, and the desperate need to prove that his best football is not permanently buried in a Houston highlight reel. The other is 24 years old, wearing his childhood number, trying to claw his way to the top of a depth chart in an organization that seems determined to give someone else the first opportunity. GM Andrew Berry, when asked about Shedeur's development, said, "I think the biggest thing that we want to see from Shedeur is just continued growth. I think he grew a lot from start 1 to start 7. Playing more efficiently, not putting the ball in harm's way as much would be important, while maintaining the ability to produce out of structure and generate explosive plays." ESPN. Growth, efficiency, less risk, more explosive plays. That is the prescription for a quarterback the organization believes in but will not yet fully commit to, because there is another quarterback in the building who costs $80 million against the cap and whose owner just called a press conference to tell the world is in great shape and has a great chance. Cleveland likely needs more mistake-free play from its quarterback in order to be competitive in 2026, and it can be argued that Watson, when fully healthy, has a better chance of providing that than the still-developing Sanders. Bleacher Report. That is the cleanest version of the pro-Watson argument. He has been here before. He knows what a professional training camp looks like. He has thrown to Jerry Jeudy in Florida already. He is lighter than he has been in years, by his own account. And Todd Monken, a coach who has orchestrated some of the most productive offensive seasons in recent NFL memory, believes he can get more out of Watson than anyone in Cleveland has been able to do. But there is a counter-argument that is just as compelling, and it is rooted not in cap numbers or coaching resumes, but in something simpler and more human. Shedeur Sanders earned this. He earned it with every snap he took in those final 7 games when this organization had nothing else to offer. He earned it by staying in Cleveland all winter while the organization searched for a new coach, a new GM, and a new direction. He earned it by changing his jersey number back to the one he wore when everything was possible and the weight of a $230 million disaster did not exist. And if the Cleveland Browns take what he earned and hand it to someone else, someone whose Achilles tendons have been surgically repaired twice, they will have to answer for that decision in the most public way possible. The Browns' approach seems calculated. Keeping Watson engaged matters, whether as a legitimate starter or a high-priced insurance policy. At the same time, labeling the job wide open ensures Sanders doesn't coast into 2026 thinking it's handed to him.
Pro Football Network. Everything is strategic. Everything is messaging. And somewhere beneath all of it, beneath the press conference language and the NFL Network reports and the Florida workout videos, two quarterbacks are preparing to walk onto the same practice field in Berea, Ohio on April 7th and settle this the only way it can actually be settled. One of them is fighting for his legacy. One of them is fighting for his future. And the man who put both of them in this impossible situation, the man who paid $230 million for one and drafted the other with a fifth-round pick after all 31 other teams passed, is standing on the sideline with a smile on his face, telling reporters both of them have a great chance. That is Cleveland Browns football in 2026. Beautiful, brutal, and absolutely impossible to look away from.